Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to any new subscribers. My pleasure to have your subscription. Hope you stay for a good long while. I have been missing you guys, and I am off schedule just a tad bit. I hope to get back acclimated. I was at one time ahead of myself, which I love. And I was often early with my content upload, but I have been a little bit behind lately, and I don't like that, so I apologize. I am wanting to give a what I would call a very delicate truth. Now, this is the truth that we could probably all relate to. And unfortunately, it's a truth that those that need to hear it are the last one that will receive it, kind of thing. And so here's what I'm talking about. The lack of acknowledgement on a thing that you can't do, but you're responsible for, especially in the workplace. I have found, and I'm going to be so careful with these words because I don't want to make it seem like people are incapable, because maybe they're capable, but they're not really applying themselves. And then for me to say that they're not fully applying themselves may make it seem that I'm calling them lazy. And I'm not doing that either. I don't think it's either of those by which I've exampled. What I am finding is that people will never tell you that they don't even know how to do a thing, because that makes them look inefficient in their role. That makes them look incapable of doing that which they're responsible for by way of their job or their job description. And that truth has been for me, a little ant that I have been trying to trail. Where is the trace for where these same type of ants are appearing? Where is it coming from? For so many years, I've tried to get to the root of it. And the root of it is this: people will never tell you that they don't know how to do a thing. And even if it shows up in their work, they will blame the report. They will blame an error that was made before they got their part to do it. They just won't acknowledge their shortcoming. It's unfortunate because all of us are always learning, whether we acknowledge that too or not, because no one knows everything and things are developing all the time. But when you see a pattern from a person, you begin to point out that shortcoming of the person. But because we want to be so respectful in the workplace, we don't even say anything. So that shortcoming continues to happen over and over again, even if it impacts your work. That never turns out well, because what that does is that builds frustration, and that builds resentment, and that builds some type of way of circumventing the person and going around the person to ask someone else who would do the same thing to do that piece of that person's job because they're not as good at it. All of this has to occur because the person's shortcoming hasn't been presented to them by just saying, hey, we see you're struggling with this. Let's train again on it. Let's, let's work together and then watch how I do it. Shadow me. All of these different ways that we can reduce the misnomer and the shortcoming of the person, if only we would address it. And it happens all the time in the workplace. And it's exhausting because what often happens too is the person continues to get a pass and a pass and a pass on their performance appraisal because supervisors forget about it by the time they're supposed to do the performance appraisal. They see it when it's happening. But then when it comes for that annual review, they just want to get through the reviews that they have to do for everyone. So the shortcoming keeps coming back again and again. The shortcoming will be coming back shortly, is what I'm saying. And it's very, I don't want to say disturbing because that sounds strong. That's not the word I'm looking for either. Anyway, disturbing is not the word. It's very, what's a good word? Not annoying. It's very telling. It's very telling as to the personhood of an individual who won't recognize and correct or ask for training as to their own shortcoming. There is a lack of not only professional development, but personal development that prevents them from doing that. Now, how do you have that talk with the person? How do you address that? And that's why it remains unaddressed. And that's why certain people in the workplace continue to get frustrated, a word I don't like, just like complicity, a word I don't like. There's certain words in the related to the workplace that I don't like because that means that someone didn't do anything about it. Complicity. You could have done something about the situation and you chose not to. Frustrated. You could have taken care of that before you became frustrated and you didn't. Those are things that to me could be prevented, but people let them stew on all along and they never fix it. And then they become the individuals at work that's difficult to deal with because they haven't been addressed. And the root of the problem is they haven't acknowledged their own shortcomings. Now, I would say this, and this is what I often say in my mind, but I wouldn't say out loud. But since we're cozy with each other, you're my subscriber. If you haven't clicked subscribe, you can do so now if you're not. I have found that for me, it is not so much tolerance. I used to say, Sheri, just tolerate more, just tolerate it. It's not so much tolerance. It's the fact that I have to grant myself permission to have a higher level of just not caring about the matter if it's not brought to my attention, although I know about it. And that's how I've chosen to do. It's not been brought to my attention. That makes you back responsible for dealing with it, although I know about it. When it becomes too aggravating or too frustrating or too painful or too upsetting, and you want to come my way, then we can talk about it. But in my mind, I have less to worry about those situations because not just tolerance, but I have decided that I have elevated my bandwidth by which I just don't care about a thing unless it's brought to my attention. Okay? And I love you. If you've gotten this far, please click like, please click subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. I hope I get back on schedule. Talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.